Hey, everybody, welcome to Jets Talk Now. I'm Paul Fiore. Please click like and subscribe. Happy Sunday. We are a week a week and a day out from the initial 53-man roster needing to be cut down. And so I thought it'd be good to record kind of my view on the Jets' initial 53-man roster, what I would do. Some of the position battles that we've seen that may not necessarily impact the 53-man roster, but just, who's starting at safety? What do we do at wide receiver? I think those conversations, who's QB2, we can go through that. And obviously, as we all know, this will be the initial 53. And then, the Jets will scour the market for potential upgrades and you'll get your final 53. So, of course, we still have the Snoopy Bowl to play, and I think, look, you're not going to see starters next week, but you're going to have a lot of position battles that still are kind of up in the air. And, I might have some views here that are a little bit more nuanced or different than maybe what the Jets wind up doing, but that's just my own personal opinion. So let's just go through it. I took my notes, I'm going to go through position by position, and we'll go from there. So quarterback, let's start there. Obviously, Jets have 4 in camp. My personal view is the Jets are only going to carry 2 on the active 53. I think it'll be Geno and Cade. I think that they will attempt to bring Cook back on practice squad, and I think Bailey Zappe's gone. I think there's no point in keeping him. He's not the vet for insurance that you would want. There's a lot of people who've tried to argue that the Jets need to get a veteran quarterback in case Geno gets hurt. I'm not going to argue that you shouldn't do that. I'm going to argue that Bailey Zappe is not that veteran quarterback. He's not been good. So do I think it's possible the Jets find their way into an Andy Dalton or another veteran that maybe pops free here on these roster cuts? I do. Or maybe they trade a 7th round pick for somebody as a kind of an emergency backup. But I think the way they'll start the season is Cade will be the bona fide QB2. And the reason why I say that is because the only reason you would need to have that veteran is, let's say, God forbid, Geno gets hurt in weeks 1, 2, or 3. And now you got to turn to the QB2 and the rookie and Cade. I'm fine with that. But let's just say Cade comes out there and he looks overwhelmed and he's not capable. Then you need a veteran that you can then plug in to not then snowball it, right? So like the way I would think about it is, I don't know, God forbid, it's week 2, Geno's playing, he twists an ankle, he's got to come out. Now Cade comes in and he has to finish the game and it's not good. And then it turns out that Geno needs a week or 2 before he can play. Then you need to have a veteran that can come in and be the starter. So I think the Jets can get somebody to fill that QB3, who if you need to go to, you can do it, but it's not Bailey Zappe. And, again, Brady Cook's a practice squad guy. You want to keep working on development for him. That's fine. But, I feel really good about what Cade's done this summer, I should say. I think it's looked good. I think he's looked composed. I think he looks like he has control of the offense. It's not perfect, but it's certainly good enough for QB2 today. So that's where I am with QBs. Running backs. I'm going with the obvious 3, obviously, with Breece, Braylon, and Isaiah. Kene will be your 4 as your returner. I am not keeping Beck, mainly because I think it's clear the Jets are going to keep 4 tight ends. I would be shocked, actually, if they didn't, unless Sadiq's not ready week 1. But you're going to have to IR him. I don't think so. It doesn't sound like that. You still got, 3 weeks before he's got to play. So I'm thinking it's going to be Breece, Braylon, Isaiah, and Kene. And then Mason Taylor, who's had a very good camp, has looked very short-handed. He's not going to get you a lot of yak, but he's going to be a very important kind of safety valve underneath. And you need that kind of player. So, he seems to get open. He's in the right spots. He's had a nice camp. So for me, it's Taylor, Sadiq, who we've not yet seen, but adds a whole nother dimension to the offense. Jelani Woods has earned his way onto this team. He's a beast. I mean, the guy is massive in size. He's made some plays. and then you got Jeremy Ruckert. And so I think by not keeping Beck, you basically fill the Beck role with a Ruckert as the blocker. So that makes sense to me. Wide receivers, this is the one that's maybe a little tricky. I think the Jets will keep 6. So for me, it's Garrett, A.D. Mitchell, Omar Cooper Jr., Isaiah Williams are your top 4. That's easy. I do believe that Omar Cooper Jr. will be wide receiver 3. He was wide receiver 3 this week in preseason. He was fine. I like the way he blocks. He's a physical wide receiver. Isaiah Williams is not. I know Williams started out as wide receiver 3 week 1. He was demoted to wide receiver 4 in week 2. He had a fumble. He also had a play on the sidelines where, I thought Klubnik made a really nice play to get the ball out to the hash, and he couldn't come up with the ball. I mean, it wasn't an easy catch, but I think it's a catch that Omar Cooper Jr. probably would make. So to me, I think Isaiah Williams, he's a nice. It's a nice story. He's a good wide receiver 4. I would go with him as 4. I think he's going to win that battle, Omar Cooper Jr. If not week 1, by week 3 or week 4, he's got the higher upside. He's a talented physical football player. He will be wide receiver 3. I think Tim Patrick makes this roster as wide receiver 5. And then it comes down to, who do you think is going to be wide receiver 6? Arian Smith. And I think I've been very clear how I feel about Arian Smith. I think the Jets fan base in general feel this way about him. He is just not a good football player. He doesn't catch enough footballs. He doesn't run routes very clean. He's a contributor on special teams as a gunner. But, I mean, if he wasn't a 4th round pick, I would think it's 100% that he's gone. But because he was a 4th round pick last year, you kind of have to admit your mistake by cutting him. And I think you have actually a couple of those types of players on this roster that, are already on that risk, right? Tyler Barron, Malachi Moore, and Arian Smith. All 3 of those guys are roster bubble guys. So I think Arian Smith is not going to make the team. And so for me, I would keep Malik McClain. 6'4", 200-pound wide receiver, decent speed. He has the physical tools to be a worthwhile wide receiver 6. He has busted his hump in this camp. I thought he had a nice game on Friday. And so for me, I want the guy that I think has the bigger upside at wide receiver 6. And I think McClain's got that. So that would be my wide receiver 6. I already told you guys on my 4 tight ends. And now we'll go to the offensive line. That'll finish our offense. Offensive line, top 5 are our top 5, right? Olu, Parham, Myers, Tittman, Membu, right? That's easy. It's actually easy to even give you your second line here, but I want to talk about it a little bit. You got Mitchell, Newman, Okorafor, and Cooper. In that group of 4, to me, Newman is absolutely the weak. I get that he's got some versatility. He can play guard and he can play center, but I don't think he plays either one well. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets scour the market looking for a replacement who can play center, because that is their weakest position by far on the offensive line. And, I just don't think Newman's a good answer as the backup. Cooper had a really bad game this past week. They moved him from the 3rd team to 2nd team. He got beat like a drum. Max Mitchell, has had a career as a backup, and I just don't think he's very good either. So, in general, that 2nd team, and I get it, it's just there's not a lot of great 2nd team offensive linemen that are out there on the market. But if you can find some upgrades, I wouldn't be surprised if you see a little bit of movement on that side of the roster. That's your starting offense, and your backups. That's kind of the first group. Let's go to defense. I'm keeping 5 interior defensive linemen: Sweat, Phillips, Briggs, Onyemata, and Jackson Jr. I am cutting Smith. I have not seen anything that gives me a desire to keep him. I get that he's got the size, but where's the game been? since they've acquired him from Dallas, he's shown nothing to me. So I would just keep the 5 because it gives me an ability to make some other moves like here on edge. Like I want to keep 5 edge instead of 4. So if I can keep 5 edge, I'm going Bailey, Will McDonald, Asai, and Agbare. And then I think this is a final decision that will happen after the Giants game between McGregor or Nate Lynn. And I get that Nate Lynn's only been here for a cup of coffee, but he played really well and his motor is high and he has familiarity with Glenn. And if you look at him, aside from the injuries that he's had, he's got a lot of upside as a player, and I think more so than McGregor. If he continues to show that this week, I would personally choose Nate Lynn over Braden McGregor. And I think McGregor could probably make it through the practice squad. So, they may decide, well, we'll keep McGregor and then Lynn will make the practice squad. So I could see it going either way. But if I'm just talking about my own personal preference, I see more with Nate Lynn than I've seen with McGregor. And I think, he's an interesting, talented player who's had some injury issues, but I like what he brings. And right now, when I look at the Jets, and you got Bailey, who's a great pass rusher, Will McDonald, who I think is more of a situational rusher, and then Osai and Agbare, I kind of like what Lynn brings to the table more than McGregor personally. On linebacker, actually, this is really easy. I think it's Demario Davis. I think it's Jamie and Sherwood, McCrary, Ball, and Kiko. I think that's the line of 4. You could say Mikael Walker has given them something to think about if they want to keep 5 linebackers. I'm not sure. I would rather keep the extra edge, and I'd also rather keep an extra corner because, I think right now, if you were keeping 5 linebackers, you would either go down to 4 edge with 5 linebackers, or you keep 5 edge, 5 linebackers, and then go down to 6 corners. I don't love that. Why? Because I think there's a good amount of question marks on the corner position. When you look at it, there's a lot of names that we all know, and a lot of them, you think about it, like, oh, this guy could be good, he could be, but there's also injury issues there. So, like, to me, it's the easy ones: Brandon Stevens, AZT, Brownlee, obviously your top 3. Pons, we assume will be healthy for week 1. So your top 4 is clear. From there, you've got Stiggers, who got hurt and, has been out. So we don't know. He's more of a special teams guy anyway. He's been. Then you got Nahshon Wright. Okay. And so that's your 6 that I think are all locks on the roster. But, I think it would have been a conversation if Bamba didn't get hurt to make potential as the 7th. But I actually think Jeremy Clark has kind of showed up in a way that makes him very interesting for this roster. Because when I look at what he's done in camp for the Jets, he's played really good football when he's been on the field. And I think when I think about him, I'm sorry, Jordan Clark. I don't know why I said Jeremy Clark. When I think about who he is as a player and where he's kind of evolved from last year, I like that he's got some versatility and you can move him around a little bit. And I think you need that when you look at this team in general. I think he's earned a 53-man spot personally. So, and I think if they cut him, I don't think he's going to be I don't think he's a guy that's going to make it through. I think somebody will actually pick him up and put him on their roster. So, I don't think the Jets can try to sneak through him on practice squad. I think he's a guy that, should be on the 53-man. I think, I would carry 7. That's my personal opinion. Safety: Minkah, Belton, Cisco, and look, I think you carry Moore. I think he barely makes this roster. He's done really very little to give me any confidence in him as a long-term. And it's disappointing because I was really hoping that Minkah and Moore were going to be your 2 safeties. And Moore has really been the worst of the 4. Cisco and Belton, that's the battle for who starts. I think it's going to be Belton over Cisco. I think Belton's been the better player. So I think you keep 4 safeties. I think Moore makes it by the skin of his teeth. Just the reality of the weakness in the safety spot, because I think Cisco's a poor player. I know he had a pick this week. I just don't think he's very good. And you hope that Malachi Moore maybe figures it out. Kicker competition. I don't think it's much of a competition. I think Sanders has clearly been the better kicker over York. I don't know why we even continue this. I'd like to see Sanders get all the kicks this week and just give him the job. McNamara and Hennessy. So that's your 53, right? So, 2 quarterbacks, not 3. 4 running backs, not 5. 6 wide receivers. Arian Smith gone. Keeping 4 tight ends. Losing Beck as the 5th wide running back. The 9 offensive linemen, but look to them potentially trying to find someone as an upgrade in that second line. 5 interior defensive linemen. I'm getting rid of Smith. I'm not carrying 6, interior defensive linemen. I'm keeping 5 edge instead of 4, and I'm going to let that position battle play out. But I like Lynn over McGregor. The Jets may choose differently, but I think they'll keep one of those 2, and I think they're going to go with 5. 4 linebackers. I like Mikael Walker. I think he's done a nice job. I don't think they're going to keep him. 7 corners instead of 6, and I think that's Jordan Clark. I think he's earned that. Again, I like his flexibility, and you could even move him to safety in a pinch, which I think is an interesting thought. Your 4 safeties, Minka, Belton, Cisco, Moore. Moore barely makes it, and then we talked about the kicking position going to Sanders. That does leave Tyler Barron off the 53 and Arian Smith. So 2 drafted players from last year, 4th and 5th round picks, do not make this roster. If the Jets aren't concerned about what the perception is of that, they make those decisions. I don't think Tyler Barron's done anything to earn a roster spot. I don't think Arian Smith has done anything. In fact, the only time I heard his name called this past week was for a penalty on special teams for blocking in the back. So that's where I stand. I'm curious where you guys might stand. Looking forward to the position battles playing out this week against the Giants in the Snoopy Bowl. I'm sure we'll see Cade again for probably maybe a quarter, maybe see him for 4 series. I doubt he'll go past that. My guess is the last 3 quarters will be, pretty much a Bailey Zappi, Brady Cook show, which, that's a tough watch. But hey, hopefully if you're a Yankee fan, they're battling for first place. So that might be the time to switch the channel. So anyway, hope everyone's doing great. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll chat with you soon.